when trials become triumphs. The resilience revolution. Have you ever watched someone walk through fire and somehow emerge not just intact, but glowing? I mean, truly glowing, as if the flames that should have consumed them instead forged something luminous within their spirit. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Yolanda Latimer, a woman whose story doesn't just inspire, it completely shatters our preconceptions about what's possible in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Yolanda isn't just remarkable for what she's accomplished, she's revolutionary in how she's redefining resilience for Black women in a world that often forces them to choose between thriving and merely surviving. What struck me most about Yolanda wasn't the impressive list of her achievements, though, believe me, we'll get to those. It was the radical gentleness with which she carries her strength. In our culture that worships at the altar of hustle and grind, that treats exhaustion as a status symbol, Yolanda has discovered something profound. Sometimes our greatest power emerges when we lead with love instead of force. Picture this scenario for a moment. You're a single mother with three children. One of them is what doctors call a micropreemie, a miracle baby born at just 23 weeks gestation when most don't survive outside the womb. The world is shutting down due to a global pandemic. Your financial future is suddenly cast into shadow. Most people would consider just getting through each day without completely falling apart a monumental victory. But Yolanda, she saw possibility blooming in the desert of disaster. While juggling full time work, attending culinary school at night, and making regular visits to the neonatal intensive care unit, a place where time seems suspended between heartbreak and hope. She launched a cooking business from her kitchen, not because it seemed like a convenient time, but because her community needed nourishment during an impossible time. I never set out to be featured on Good Morning America, Yolanda shared during our conversation, with that characteristic humility that makes her wisdom so accessible. I just wanted to feed people who were struggling. And that's it. That's the whole story. Except it wasn't the whole story, not even close. What began as an act of compassion quickly evolved into something extraordinary. Soon, Yolanda was preparing over 200 meals weekly by herself from her home kitchen. 200 meals, one woman, a pandemic, three children, including a medically fragile infant who required specialized care. Let that sink in for a moment. Most of us struggle to cook dinner for ourselves after a long day. We order takeout and call it self care. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it does make you wonder what untapped reservoirs of strength might we access if we connected our passion to a purpose bigger than ourselves. This is what I call the resilience revolution, the radical idea that our deepest trials can become the very soil from which our greatest triumphs grow. Not through toxic positivity that denies pain, but through a clear eyed courage that says, yes, this is hard, and yes, I will find a way through it. But here's what makes Yolanda's story particularly powerful. She never bought into the strong Black woman trope that says we must sacrifice ourselves on the altar of everyone else's needs. Her service came from abundance, not depletion, from love, not obligation. The difference, she told me, is knowing when to pour out and when to fill up. Both are necessary, both are sacred. I've been turning that wisdom over in my mind ever since our conversation. How many of us have been taught that strength means never stopping, never resting, never admitting we're tired? How many of us wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor? The truth is, there's nothing honorable about burnout. There's nothing admirable about running on empty, and there's certainly nothing sustainable about a life built on the shaky foundation of perpetual depletion. What Yolanda demonstrates is a different kind of strength, one that acknowledges vulnerability without being defined by it, one that says, yes, I'm facing impossible circumstances, but I refuse to let them dictate who I become. This isn't toxic positivity, it's radical resilience, and it's available to every single one of us. During our interview, Yolanda shared three principles that guided her journey from survival to significance. I want to explore each one because I believe they offer a roadmap for anyone navigating their own impossible season. First, resilience can transform trials into triumphs. When Yolanda's daughter was born at just 23 weeks, a time when most babies don't survive outside the womb, she had every reason to collapse under the weight of fear and uncertainty. Instead, she chose to channel that energy into creating something life giving. Every meal I prepared, she said, was an act of faith, a declaration that life continues even in the darkest moments, that nourishment matters, that care matters. This isn't about denying pain or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about refusing to let your circumstances have the final word on your story. Second, pursuing passion amidst adversity isn't just possible, it's necessary. While working full time and raising three children as a single mother, Yolanda still made space to attend culinary school at night. Not because she had extra time or energy, she didn't, but because she understood that nurturing her passion was essential to her well being. Too many women put their dreams on hold waiting for the perfect moment, she reflected. But perfect moments don't exist. There's only now, with all its messiness and complications. The question isn't whether conditions are ideal for pursuing your passion. They never will be. The question is whether your passion is worth pursuing despite imperfect conditions. For Yolanda, the answer was an unequivocal yes. And that decision didn't just change her life, it transformed her community, which brings me to her third principle. Community impact begins with service. The business Yolanda built wasn't just about profit, though there's nothing wrong with being properly compensated for your work. It was fundamentally about service, about meeting a need she was uniquely positioned to fill. During the height of the pandemic, when fear and isolation threatened to unravel community bonds, her home cooked meals became threads of connection. Nourishment became nurturing, food became fellowship. I believe we heal ourselves by helping others, she said, not in a martyr way that depletes us, but in a meaningful way that reminds us we're all connected. This philosophy extends beyond Yolanda's cooking business. Today, she collaborates with Miami Central Senior High School's Alumni Association to support its culinary arts program, providing hands on training and mentorship to aspiring student chefs. By recognizing gaps in opportunity within Black communities for culinary education, she's creating pathways for the next generation. She's not just feeding bodies, she's nourishing dreams. When I look at these students, she shared, I see unlimited potential, but potential needs pathways. It needs someone who believes before there is evidence, someone who says, I see you and your gifts matter. This is how generational change happens, not through grand gestures, but through consistent presence, through showing up again and again with whatever you have to offer. The impact of Yolanda's approach extends beyond her immediate community. Her story has inspired countless Black women entrepreneurs to launch businesses rooted in service, even under daunting circumstances. One young entrepreneur, also named Yolanda, shared how starting a food based side hustle helped empower herself financially while supporting family obligations during the pandemic. Using digital platforms like TikTok and Instagram to market her dishes locally, she built a loyal clientele through storytelling centered on resilience, family, and culture driven cuisine. I didn't see many examples growing up, this young entrepreneur explained. So I decided to become one myself and document every step publicly so others could follow. This is how movements begin. One story ignites another, which illuminates another, creating a constellation of transformation that lights the way for others. So I ask you today, what fire are you walking through? What impossible circumstance are you facing? And what might be possible if you refused to let it define you? I'm not suggesting it's easy. The path of resilience is often lonely and always challenging. It requires tremendous courage to pursue your passion when the world seems to be falling apart around you. It demands faith to keep moving forward when the evidence suggests you should give up. And it takes wisdom to distinguish between necessary sacrifice and unnecessary suffering, between pouring out from abundance and pouring out from depletion. But here's what I know for certain after speaking with Yolanda: you are stronger than you think. Your passion matters more than you know, and your service, whatever form it takes, creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. So today I challenge you to take one step toward resilience, not by denying your pain, but by refusing to let it have the final word, not by pretending everything is fine, but by finding one small way to create beauty amid the brokenness. Maybe it's enrolling in that class you've been putting off. Maybe it's starting the business that's been living in your heart. Maybe it's simply asking for help when you've been trying to do everything alone. Whatever it is, remember that resilience isn't about never falling. It's about rising every time you fall. It's not about avoiding fire, it's about emerging from it transformed. Because when we lead with love instead of fear, when we serve from abundance instead of depletion, when we embrace our passion even in the midst of pain, we don't just change our own lives. We create a revolution of resilience that has the power to heal our communities, transform our world, and rewrite the story of what's possible for generations to come. The fire is waiting. The choice is yours. Will you walk through it?